Hi everyone, it's Kate Walker from The Incredible Canine. I'd like to talk about cues. You would cue your dog to sit, or you would cue your dog to come. Sit, 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 sit. No, no, sit. I want to talk about not repeating the cue and not changing the cue. So I'll give you an example with sit. The first time that people normally tell their dog to sit, by the way, what you say is a verbal cue. There are also other cues. You could have a visual cue. So a visual cue is like a hand signal. But I want to specifically talk about verbal cues right now. So a verbal cue is when you tell your dog to sit, and what you expect next is for the dog to put their butt to the ground. So the first time that someone typically cues their dog to sit, they say the command how they always want to say the command. Like they'll say it like this: sit, which is appropriate. The second time that they cue their dog, they normally change the tone of the verbal cue. So the second time's normally more like sit. If their dog doesn't sit, they normally repeat and change the cue for the third time, and they will often say it even more forcefully, and people will often now add in some other physical means of help. So examples of other means of help could be they pick up a treat and hold the food, or if they already had the food, they often like lure it over the dog's head so their weight shifts back so that they sit. People will, if they have the dog on the leash, they'll pull up on the leash, like the pull up so that they shift back. People will put a finger on the dog's butt and push down. But this third time that a cue is repeated, some other additional cue is often added. And maybe now on the third time the dog sits. So the dog didn't actually learn that sit was the cue. The dog learned that sit with like leash, food, finger on the butt, whatever it is, that's what was successful in getting the sit. So the dog learned that that was the cue to get the sit. We don't want to do that. So to avoid that, you need to say the cue once and then add whatever help is needed to get the dog to sit, whether that is the food or the leash or the finger on the butt, like luring. You will say something once, and then you will do whatever is needed to be done in order for your dog to sit. I want to use also the example of come. People call their dog multiple times. So the first time that they say come, if the dog doesn't come, then they normally change their tone, come. And maybe the third time is come, and we're changing the cue, like come on, you want a treat, come on, let's go. And now we're like adding in all of these other visual cues. So the dog doesn't actually know. It tells you, if you have to do all of this, it tells you that your dog doesn't know the cue. For the recall, that could be, You throw food, you have the dog on a leash, you have an e-collar, you predict when your dog will come, like say in the house you call them and they come every time. There are times you predict, like right now while my dog is picking up that stick, I'm not going to call. But after they already get the stick, then I could call and they may come. Like, choose wisely when you call. That is very much a strategy. But what's important here is if you call once, and if your dog just proved to you that they don't or won't come with the first verbal cue, don't repeat it. Now you need to do something that helps or supports or makes your dog come. That may mean if your dog's out in the yard and you say come and they don't come, then now you are marching out in the yard to get your dog, or you're turning around and grabbing a leash and then marching out and getting your dog, or you're getting your food because you don't have it but you should have it, and then you realize, dang it, I don't have it, so you're like turning around and getting the food and now going to get the dog. But don't repeat the cue. You said it once, now make it happen. So this is really important, and that's why I'm making this video, but this is why it's important. So cues, and especially the recall, cues are very important. The recall matters so much to me because the recall is life or death. So if your dog doesn't come, your dog could die. Coming when called is often related to a dog running freely, being out in a yard, in a field, in the woods, and there's safety. There's for sure an issue of safety. You can't like manage everything when you're out there in the wild. So the recall is super important. Here's why it's really important. If I call my dog once and they don't come, my score is currently a 0 out of 1. That's a 0%. If I repeat the cue, I've now called my dog twice. Maybe they don't come. My score is now a 0 out of 2. That's a 0%. I call my dog 3 times. Maybe they don't come. My score is now 0 out of 3, and that's a 0%. What I'm teaching the dog is that all of these cues don't matter. It's optional. You don't really have to come. And my proficiency percentage right now is at a 0. That's not good. I need it to be at 100%. So how do we get 100%? That means I call my dog once and my dog comes once. 1 out of 1 is 100%. I call my dog twice, my dog comes twice. That's 2 out of 2, also 100%. So if you call your dog once, they need to come once. Don't repeat the cue, because every time you repeat the cue, your proficiency percentage drops again and again and again and again. And the zeros don't go away. So here's an example. I call my dog 4 times. Come, 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 come on, hey, let's go, come. Okay, so I just called the dog 4 times. My percentage is currently 0 out of 4, 0%. Maybe now the 5th time I call my dog, they come. So now I'm 1 for 5. I'm not 1 for 1. I'm 1 for 5. That's a 20% proficiency rate. 20% is not good enough. The zeros don't go away. So if I just called my dog 4 times and they didn't come, then I called them the 5th time and they came, these 4 don't go away. I always have that adding into my overall percentage. So even if someday, like think of for the next couple weeks, your dog comes every single time. These 4 zeros don't go away. So now you might be 96 for 100. That means you're at 96%. It's so darn important that if you cue your dog to come, don't repeat the cue. Do whatever has to be done in order to get the behavior. If you call your dog that one time and they don't come, it's like I bank this knowledge about like, okay, my dog was just watching another dog walk by. They did not come. I now know that it's a difficult scenario to call my dog when they're watching that dog walk by, so don't do that next time. First of all, I need to go get my dog, because I just called him, and he's not coming, so go get him. This is not optional. And then, because I like banked that knowledge, like, okay, I had a difficult moment, I called a dog at a difficult moment, don't repeat it. Especially if you don't have a way to make it happen. So the dog's off leash, no e-collar, no food. Like, you've got no leverage out there. Make sure if you're working toward 100% proficiency rates, practice calling your dog in moments that are not difficult. That means in the house, even while they're on a leash, even only 4 feet away, you can call your dog to you. Like, you need them to turn their head and come back in your space. So don't only practice calling your dog when they're out fence fighting with the neighbor dog, or like eating the rabbit poop, or digging in the yard. Don't only practice calling your dog in that moment. You've got to practice calling your dog when there are opportunities to absolutely score 100%. 10 out of 10 times today I called my dog and he came. Good. That means we're still at 100% proficiency. There are times that I don't cue my dog if I can predict that it won't be a 1-for-1 result. So just to recap this a little bit, don't repeat the cue. Don't change the cue. So say the cue once and then make it happen, and use whatever additional help you need to make it happen, whether that's food, a leash, some other physical support. Cue once and get the result so that we have a 1-for-1 score, which is 100%. We always want to practice these cues at 100%. They are not optional. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you for listening. Have an incredible day. Bye.